So without further ado, I'll introduce Timo. Timo Pieters encountered Buddhism as a teenager and was fortunate enough to pursue both academic religious studies and 15 years of Buddhist practice under the guidance of many mentors, including Rob Priest, Dr. B. Alan Wallace, our founder, and Garchin Rinpoche. Timo is also the founder of Integral Wellbeing, where he teaches practices for cultivating physical, psychological, social, and systemic well-being, drawing on both modern science and the world's wisdom traditions. So again, we're so happy to have Timo here, and I will hand it over now. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everybody. Good to see all of you. Trying to see if I can recognize any faces from last February when I did another Ghatika monthly. Was anybody else there in February? Did I see one hand go up? That's cool. Hi, Ronald. So, okay, wonderful. Yeah, seeing that a lot of folks have their cameras closed, of course, that's totally fine. Would be very lovely to see your faces if you would be want to do that. So I do invite you to do so. Can make it more personal and more intimate. Hello, everybody. And so yeah, it's my delight to guide another session like this. Really enjoyed the last one. We had a lot of exchange, a lot of interaction, and a lot of fun insights came out of that. And what I thought to do this time was to, in a sense, see if we can do a little short guided tour, if you will, through the Buddhist path. Um, I think that when most of us encounter Buddhist meditation for the first time, it can either be in this highly simplified form of sort of modern mindfulness, mainly cultivating attention skills, being mindful in the present moment, or we get a very traditional, presentation of all the steps and stages of the path, such as in the Tibetan Lamrim tradition. You're studying big, thick volumes and lots of details. And both of those can, be a little, can confuse us, I think, sometimes about the simplicity of the basic structure of the path. That we're really talking about a handful of really core psychological processes that we're cultivating, in a sense, really core inner causes of well-being that are simultaneously also antidotes to our inner causes of suffering. And so, what I would like to do, and maybe a slightly different approach from what's been happening with other Ghatika monthly sessions. Of course, usually Ghatika is a 24-minute session. That's been the sort of standard approach so far. But if we do that, we will be busy a long time. So what I was going to suggest is that we do about four short, about 15-minute meditations. I will introduce each one very briefly, and then we do some practice together. So I hope it will not take more than about 90 minutes or so, not to stretch it too long. And then, of course, if anybody has questions or would like some exchange, that's also very possible. So maybe just to very briefly outline what I would like to go through with you. I think that, the Buddhist path, and in particular, the Sutrayana path, for those who are not familiar, sort of early Buddhism, Theravada, and also Mahayana Buddhism. So here, sort of excluding Vajrayana and Tantric Buddhism, which has its own unique approach. But if we just look at this basic, you could say, exoteric, more accessible kind of Buddhism, what jumps out to me is there are really four central practices, central meditations that we do on the path, and that gradually we deepen into. The first of which is cultivating the determination to be free. That's one translation of the Tibetan term nejung, literally meaning to definitely emerge, to emerge from the ocean of suffering and the causes of suffering, and the wish to attain freedom from that and to find a more lasting kind of well-being. And then once you've developed that, in a sense, compassion for yourself, it actually is a form of self-compassion. You wish for yourself to be free from suffering in all its forms, in all of its most subtle varieties, down to, the dissatisfaction of our usual everyday kind of happiness. Once you've developed that kind of compassion for yourself, you can then bring that out to others. And so, of course, we practice all the various methods of opening the heart. In early Buddhism, the four immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, impartiality. And then in the Mahayana, further refining that in a sense, further expanding that to include an extra element of responsibility. That I think is really the unique contribution that the Mahayana makes to these heart practices. Not just saying, may you be happy, but I will do what I can to bring you happiness. The bodhisattva ideal, the altruistic motivation. So we will do a sort of short practice of Tonglen that goes into bodhicitta as well. So we'll try to touch on most of that. And then, of course, the third practice, which is highly emphasized by Lama Alan Wallace, is shamatha. My favorite translation of that is serenity. I think the term concentration has sort of an unfortunate connotation that we're working very hard. And shamatha is not about concentrating. We're really not tightening up, focusing, bearing down. It's so much about relaxing, letting go, being serene. And why is that so important? Without a serene, highly stilled and settled state of mind, it becomes nearly impossible to cultivate the positive qualities we want to cultivate, such as love and compassion. But most importantly, without that kind of stability of mind, it becomes nearly impossible to do the investigation that we do in insight meditation that will actually counteract the root of our dissatisfaction, which is our unawareness, right? Our delusions, our incessant habit of projecting onto reality things that are not there, or of not seeing things that are there, right? And so, as Lama Alan's favorite analogy, we need a stable telescope if we want to observe the nature of reality. How are you going to observe the stars and planets if you have a telescope that has a dirty lens, is constantly wobbling? You won't see much. You won't make reliable discoveries. So that's the importance of serenity. And so we will do a simple session combining a little bit of mindfulness of breathing and then awareness of awareness, sort of this approach I learned particularly from my teacher, Rob Priest, in the Gelug Mahamudra tradition, a very wonderful sort of hybrid. And then the last practice, of course, insight meditation, vipassana. And then particularly the four applications of mindfulness, which I think are unfortunately associated with just Theravada, just early Buddhism. Not quite. The four applications of mindfulness, again, for those who are not familiar, mindfulness of the body, applying the mindfulness that we've developed in serenity practice to investigating the nature of the body from the first person point of view, applying mindfulness to feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. What are feelings? Can I investigate their nature? Applying mindfulness to the mind, nature of the space of the mind, the observer, mental events. And then finally, applying mindfulness to all phenomena inside and outside. And can I investigate their nature from the first person perspective? So those four applications of mindfulness commonly taught in Theravada, early Buddhism, but they are also just as important in Mahayana. As His Holiness Dalai Lama explains in great detail in a series of books he wrote, I highly recommend for those who haven't looked at them yet, The Library of Wisdom and Compassion, series of 10 volumes. If you really want to get deep into Dharma, so far, in my personal opinion, this is the best introduction for those who are of a modern background, international background, who didn't grow up Buddhist, who are not Tibetans, for example. So how do we relate to the full spectrum of Dharma practices um, from all the different traditions? He covers everything. It's a really wonderful resource. But he covers these in great detail, the 4 applications of mindfulness in both their Theravada and their Mahayana form. So, of course, today we have limited time, so we can't go through all that, but we will do sort of a mix of mindfulness of the body and mindfulness of the mind, and particularly investigating the nature of the self. So we'll see how that goes. So with that brief preamble, maybe just to say a few words about the first practice I would like to do with you. Again, this determination to be free. When this practice is introduced, it's also frequently, there are lots of facets to it and lots of details, meditations on the precious human rebirth, death and impermanence, the nature of karma, and so on. But really foundational, and again, His Holiness emphasizes this a lot, the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is not just a theoretical framework that we learn in the beginning as background knowledge. These are meditations that you do. They are really central, and they continue to be central throughout the whole path, actually. Advanced bodhisattvas meditate on the Four Noble Truths. This is not beginner stuff, as it's sometimes presented. And I think a lot of the confusion comes from the fact that we call them noble truths, as if they're things to believe. Whereas in reality, I think many translators would argue, Peter Harvey in particular, the term Arya Satya is more accurately translated as these are realities. They're not truths. They're realities to see and recognize for yourself empirically. Observe them, investigate them. The reality of, first and foremost, what's often called suffering, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. The reality that a lot of the time in life, our experience is unsatisfactory. We have unsatisfying experiences. And then of course, the second noble truth or true reality, what is the cause of that? What are the causes of suffering and dissatisfaction? The third, is it possible to become free of that? The possibility of freedom. And then the fourth, the path that leads to that freedom. So today I would like to guide us a little bit through the first of those, the true reality of dukkha. Again, dukkha as unsatisfactoriness, not just suffering. What is included in dukkha is what many of us consider to be happiness. The usual, everyday, stimulus-driven kind of happiness that we continue to pursue as if it can actually give us lasting inner fulfillment. The Buddha called that kind of happiness also unsatisfying, unsatisfactory. It's part of that first noble truth, that first true reality. And of course, it's actually not so easy to recognize that. It's very easy for us to fall for the illusion every time. We think, yeah, last time I tried to find happiness through something outside myself. It didn't quite work out, but maybe this time it will. Right? Whatever it is, going on a vacation, watching that movie, that new flashy movie that came out. Wow, that's cool, And we actually expect it to give us some kind of real satisfaction, not just temporary pleasure that comes and goes, but I'm going to really be fulfilled by this. And then, of course, it ends, and we are left there standing. Okay, it's gone now. Go on the search for the next thing. And we live our lives this way so much of the time, rarely turning inward and observing, are these things actually giving rise to satisfaction? Does it actually happen? You know? And so in this meditation, we'll do that. We'll kind of turn inwards and see when we experience those kinds of, stimulus-driven happiness, does satisfaction actually arise? So I invite you to find a nice meditative posture if you can, with your spine roughly upright. That's the most important thing. Um, just so you're comfortable. Doesn't have to be cross-legged. If you're not familiar with that, if it, makes your legs uncomfortable. Lama Allen says, if you're uncomfortable, you don't have a comfortable posture. What determines it is whether or not you're comfortable. There's no such thing as a comfortable posture as such. So find a position that is comfortable for you. And if you wish, you can close your camera if that makes you feel more comfortable. And as we begin here, maybe let's start by just taking a nice deep breath and release. Really let yourself sink into your chair. And before we begin, let's take a moment to reflect on our motivation for doing this practice. Whether we're Buddhist or not, religious or not, doesn't matter. We can simply reflect. And we're here to cultivate genuine well-being. May we develop the inner causes of genuine well-being for our own benefit and for the benefit of all the sentient beings we interact with every day out there in the world, that we may one day be able to benefit them and help them alleviate their suffering and find true fulfillment within. So with that, you can become aware of the natural sensations of breathing, tactile sensations inside the body. Particular in the abdomen, not just the surface of the skin, but inside the body. As you breathe, feel these sensations tingling, moving inside the body. And with each exhale, releasing any tension you hold in your body or mind. Really let yourself surrender to gravity. As you begin to settle, I'd like you to imagine a situation sometime from the past week or so where you were experiencing something pleasant. You were experiencing some kind of happiness. It can be subtle or intense. In particular, a kind of happiness that was triggered by something from outside. It can be as simple as eating a meal. Once you've found something, see if you can vividly reimagine that experience exactly as it was. Or tasting the food, hearing the music, whatever it was. See if you can relive that moment. As you're reliving that experience, see if you can pay attention in particular to the pleasant feeling that you felt in your body, in your mind. A sense that this is pleasant. I like this. Subtle sense of happiness. And observe that closely. How long did that feeling last? See if you can experience how it changed in the moment that it sort of came to an end. Where did that feeling go? And then as you sort of rewind and relive that experience again, see if you can pay attention to whether your mind actually became satisfied. Did this pleasure lead to real satisfaction, fulfillment, or did it lead to more craving for more and better? Something else you wanted, more of the same. See if you can observe that. And then see if you can relive that experience one more time. This time, imagine that the source of your happiness, the trigger of your happiness, whether it's the music, the food, whatever it was, imagine that you had to experience that stimulus, that source, that trigger, for a very long period of time. You have to eat that same meal for a very long time. Listen to that same song for a very long time. At what point would that source start becoming a source of suffering, of unhappiness? See if you can imagine that. When would that start becoming unpleasant? you notice that it actually becomes a source of unpleasantness. What does that tell you? Is this thing really by itself capable of giving you happiness, giving you satisfaction? So, as we slowly bring this to a close, let's end with a sense of compassion towards ourselves. May we find a more durable, more lasting kind of satisfaction, fulfillment within ourselves. May we become less dependent on outer stimulation for our happiness. May we find it within. So, with that, let's dedicate whatever positive force, whatever positive qualities we developed, that it might enable us to awaken to our full potential in order to be of lasting value to every living being without exception, to help them also awaken to their full Buddha potential. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for doing that with me. Um, I'm very tempted to ask people if they want to share any, maybe if you have a one sentence of something that you noticed, something that piqued your attention that you perhaps hadn't noticed before. Anything comes to your mind, feel free before we go on to the next. Feel free to unmute.
I'll actually share something, Timo, when you mentioned the part about the song. It reminded me of that exact thing happened to me on my first ever retreat of like a song replaying back and forth in my head over and over and over again. And it was like totally devastating, because I was like, oh my gosh, I thought that I loved this song, and then I would just replay that part of the song that I liked, and I would just watch it rewind in my mind over and over again. And yeah, it was crushing, but also like so powerful too, because it did really drive home exactly what you were saying. So thank you for leading that, but also helping me remember that experience because it was just so powerful for me. So thank you.
Yeah, interesting. Don't they call it an earworm, right? When a song doesn't get out of your head, yeah, it can become excruciating. Yeah. Ronald?
Yeah, mine was a song too. I just recently went to a concert and really enjoyed it, but I looked at it and saw how short-lived that enjoyment was, and I couldn't even think it. I can't even bring it back to my head to hear it again inside. I would have to go look for it, and it was just very short-lived. That's the main point.
Right, right. Yeah, and maybe just as a final, point on this, of course, it's not to suggest that you know, our temporary happiness is somehow wrong or bad, or we shouldn't have that kind of, all of that. Of course, that's not what I'm trying to suggest, but merely to see its real nature, right? It's like you said, it's so short-lived. We can't even hold on to it, even if we try to. It just slips right through your fingers, and then you're left there standing. What to do next? I think the next practice, what we can notice maybe when we do this loving kindness and compassion practice, there's a kind of happiness that can arise in the mind with that practice that is, in many ways, if you compare them, I've actually done this in a recent retreat on this practice, on determination to be free, sort of trying to have a stimulus-driven experience, like listening to my favorite song or something. And there's some happiness, but it's it's okay. It's not that strong. It's not that intense. But then doing a practice like compassion or loving kindness or something, and you notice the quality of happiness that arises in the mind with that is so different. If you actually look at the happiness while you're doing the practice, it's so much more. If I could feel like that, you know, most of the time, that would be amazing. That would really bring so much joy and richness to my life compared to this more superficial kind. So maybe just to say a word about the next practice we can do. Um, as I mentioned, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and impartiality, the four immeasurables. I'm sure many of you are familiar, and for those who are not, practices not just found in Buddhism, found in throughout Indian traditions, but also, of course, Christianity and other traditions all over the world. Everybody recognizes these are wonderful qualities. These are really ethical qualities also. I don't think there's any tradition on the earth that would say compassion, oh, that's bad. You shouldn't have compassion. I mean, who says that? It's so obvious. It's so immediately obvious how intrinsically good these qualities are and how they enrich our lives and they make us better people. Um, and what I've always appreciated, particularly about the Indo-Tibetan tradition, is how they are able to synthesize them in a way that, of course, we can do them as separate practices, and that's very worthwhile, especially in the beginning. But in particular, the practice of Tonglen, of giving and taking, um, it brings together loving kindness and compassion in a duo, and also brings in the impartiality of bringing love and compassion not just to people you like, but to people who are strangers to you, and then people you actually dislike, or people who dislike you, which is the other aspect of that. So-called enemies in the Indian sources, usually they mean somebody who doesn't like you, somebody who hates your guts, somebody who's after you. Um, and of course, that can be challenging, but people really do experience. If they train in this, it actually becomes possible. Somebody you have just contempt for, you can't stand this person. And you can get to that point where you think of them or you look at them and you feel that sense of real warmth. That's possible. I've always found that amazing that we can actually do that. We can break those barriers internally. Um, maybe just a very short little anecdote from, Griffin mentioned Garten Rinpoche, one of my most beloved teachers. He recently, I think, turned 91 years old. He's one of the old guard, the Tibetan teachers who still was trained in Tibet, survived the communist invasion of Tibet, and spent 20 years in a Chinese concentration camp. And the main practice he did there was Tonglen. was giving and taking. He spent most hours of his day in conditions we can barely imagine. I mean, the level of misery visited upon these people is just unfathomable. We never come even close to that level of discomfort in our lives. But to be in those conditions and to decide, I'm going to use this situation to grow my compassion for all beings who suffer. And long story short, he comes out after 20 years. And, there's a beautiful documentary about him on YouTube and so on, for the benefit of all beings. You see this person, he's just radiantly happy to all appearances, and people who are with him all the time, they say the same thing, I never really see him down. He's just radiantly joyful most of the time. And he always tells his students, every opportunity he gets, love is the true cause of happiness. If you can have this in your heart, in your daily life, at your workplace, waiting for the bus, in queuing for something, you can be doing this. This is available to you wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're talking to. It's free. And it's such I was going to use the, flat word of a mood boost. Not that at all, but it does bring immediate joy, even if it's subtle. So with that little preamble, let's try it out. Let's do a little Tonglen practice together. And so if you're still in your comfortable posture, maybe you need a little stretch. Yeah, good idea, Griffin. Um, all right. So once again, as you sit, let's begin once again with just a nice deep breath. And as you release, really letting yourself sink into your chair. And as before, taking a moment to not just reflect on, but really feel into our motivation. Why are we doing this? May we develop and grow and sprout our inner capacity for love, for compassion, so that we may radiate that quality out to those we meet, those we encounter every day. We may gladden their hearts and bring a kindness and a gentleness to them. May we ultimately be able to benefit them, free them from suffering, help them find lasting joy. So with that motivation as before, becoming aware of your sensations of your breathing in the body. And as you rest your attention there in those sensations, with each exhale, releasing any tension you hold in your body or your mind. You notice yourself getting distracted. Just relax the mind a bit further. Release the distraction and return to the sensations of breathing. If you become sleepy, pay closer attention to the details of the sensations. So as you settle, you can imagine in the space in front of you a loved one, somebody you already really like and love, someone who's close to you. For a moment, just tune into any kind of suffering this person may be experiencing in their life. With a sense of empathy, really feeling and recognizing how they must feel. Then, in addition, giving rise to the wish, may you be free from suffering. And as you say that phrase in your mind, you can imagine that each time you inhale, in a sense, you breathe in their suffering. Suffering being like a kind of smoke that fills their body on the inside. And in the center of your heart is a warm, glowing orb of white light. As you inhale that suffering of theirs, and it dissolves into that orb of light in your heart without leaving a trace. Each time you inhale, may you be free. Dissolving that smoke in your heart. If you wish, you can also include on the exhale, each time you breathe out, you can say in your mind, may you be happy. Imagine a warm white light of genuine happiness and well-being flowing out on your breath towards this person, filling them, fulfilling their heart's desires. Imagine them experiencing genuine happiness. Inhale, you inhale their suffering as smoke dissolving into your heart, and as you exhale, sending out happiness to them. And just for a brief moment, notice the quality of happiness in your mind, if there is any. Just take a brief note of that. How does your mind feel after doing this for a bit? And then continue with the practice. And if you feel ready at your own pace, you can include next to this person someone who is a stranger to you, or even a small group of strangers, and try the same practice with them. If you would really like to challenge yourself, try someone you really don't like. But feel what you're actually capable of right now. For those who are familiar with the practice, you can also expand to start including many beings, not just a handful, but like a crowd of human beings, and maybe even animals, at your own pace. As we slowly near the conclusion, we can bring in that final element, a sense of responsibility. Not just may you be free or may you be happy, but may I free you from suffering. May I bring you great happiness. So then let us dedicate again whatever positive qualities we develop with this practice. The love, the compassion, the care. We dedicate it so that we may be able to awaken to our full Buddha potential in order to be of lasting value to every living being without exception, to help them also awaken to their full Buddha potential. Okay. Thank you. Again, if somebody has a 1 or 2 sentence, something they would like to say. Of course, if you have a more longer, detailed question, maybe save it for the end if you can. You write it down. But just briefly, if anybody wants to say a word, what was that like for you?
I wanted to say that I started to feel real happy and joyful when I started to kind of helping others in my mind. It really helped me feel better.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Shelley, would you please explain more on my responsibility to bring happiness to others? Thank you for that. That's a tricky subject, I think. Yes. I think the word responsibility here can have a sort of heavy, or it can weigh heavy on us to feel that we are responsible in the sense that it's, we should be doing something or something like that, or we should, I think we can be led to believe that we should feel guilty, maybe even if we don't help or if we don't do something for others and so on. I think here the suggestion of the word responsibility is rather that because we intrinsically want to, because we care about others, because we care about all the beings who are suffering, and we wish for them, may you be free, may you be happy. And we really want that for them. Then naturally, spontaneously, as if from the intensity of that desire comes that impulse of responsibility. What can I do? Can I do anything to actually benefit you? not just have wonderful intentions towards you, which is all great, but what could I actually do? And I'm almost making a commitment, right? To do what I can. And that's I think the spirit of the responsibility that's being referred to here. I don't know if that makes sense. Are you still there? Yes. Yes. Hi. How does that land with you? If I
That's very helpful. Thank you. I had trouble actually initially finding the desire to it's embarrassing to say, but the happiness for others, for those that don't like me, it's hard to conjure up the feeling of happiness to give to them. It's kind of where I'm at in my practices. I don't feel, sometimes it starts with me though, is that I don't feel that desire for me sometimes to be happy. Like I have a hard time finding even the feeling of what happiness is. I mean, if I'm to make this my own experience, I'm not experiencing happiness so much, or even finding love so much. What does that feel like? So that I can embody it and then actually send it to others. That's
right.
That's hard too.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for. It can be honestly difficult. Yeah. I remember in the CEB, cultivating emotional balance teacher training I did with Lama Alan Wallace. This was one of the practices that they started with and explored before going into love and compassion towards others, really developing it for yourself first. And it would just, people breaking into tears all over the room. I mean, it was so clear how difficult it was, including for me, to actually feel that way towards ourselves. And yeah, it can take some time. And we have, not to go into a tangent on this, but I just wanted to, it is so worthwhile to spend time developing that quality towards yourself. And whenever I teach this practice, uh, in a 12-week course I recently finished and will probably start up again soon, where we go through all these practices, that's always what I do with people is to start with the self-directed loving kindness and compassion, and to actually to take some time with that, and then what happens after that. So yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah. 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 So just to say a brief word about the next practice, the next station on our little tour, the practice of serenity, shamatha. For how many people is shamatha a familiar practice? I'm just curious if people can sort of raise hands. Yeah. Thank you. But most people. Okay, so that I don't have to. For those who don't have the camera on, yeah, I see another hand. Thank you. Yeah. So of course you're familiar. I want to say maybe a little small insight I had this morning, actually, in my own shamatha practice. Chris, do you have your hand up? Is that a question or just that you're also familiar? Probably the latter. Okay. I've struggled with shamatha for many years, really because of a tendency of perfectionism. I think that happens for many people with this practice. Of course, shamatha being developing this mindfulness and introspection, developing an increasing capacity to pay attention to something for a sustained period with relaxation, stability, vividness, right? really getting very, very intimate with your experience. And for me, always the challenge is I try too hard. You know, I try my best, you know, I try to focus and so on. And of course, whenever there's an object in this practice, whenever there's something in particular that you're focusing your attention on, that can very easily happen, I think, with mindfulness or breathing, or whether it's, you know, observing the mind or settling the mind in its natural state, where you're observing thoughts and emotions and desires and trying to sort of keep track of everything. It can very easily happen that we sort of start to tighten up. We start to work hard. And the practice that has helped me so much and that I want to share a little bit with you, I'm sure many are familiar with shamatha without a sign or awareness of awareness. Maybe also just a brief show of hands if that is familiar. Yeah, must be. I mean, Lama Alam teaches it a lot. So just maybe the little small anecdote of this morning, I just thought to myself, you know, this practice helps me so much all the time because it says there actually is no object, right? You can stabilize your attention without directing your attention towards something. You're not focusing on something. There actually isn't anything to do as such. We're not giving our mind a task. And when we leave our attention undirected, it naturally comes to rest, it comes to hover in the present moment, in a sense, being aware of itself. And of course, this practice has a parallel in the practice of Dzogchen, you know, great perfection, Mahamudra. For those who are not familiar, practices that help us reveal a deeper dimension of that awareness that is primordial, right? So it can help us reveal primordial awareness. In other words, an awareness that has always been there, that is really the ground of our own mind, that we are simply overlooking almost every moment of our day because we are totally preoccupied with the contents of our awareness. The visual things we're seeing, the sounds we're hearing, the thoughts we're thinking, all this stuff. And we forget that which is aware of all those things, right? And so this morning, as I was doing this practice, awareness of awareness, I was reflecting, actually, awareness is already primordial. You don't have to do anything to make awareness be there. If you do nothing at all, if you stop doing everything you're doing, awareness is always there. It's not that we have to do something to discover primordial awareness. Awareness is already primordial. It's the ground. It's the canvas that your whole experience is taking place on, you could say. And so how wonderful is it to be able to approach shamatha with that quality of utter trust and surrender, that when I give up trying, awareness is there to hold me. Already, always. You can't make it go away. You couldn't even do that. So as you cease all activity, that's what's left. And so maybe we can sort of try that a little. See if we can play with that a little bit. So I'm aware of the time, and maybe this is a last practice. I mean, we can check in afterwards how people are feeling, energy, and so on. But maybe as a final, nice, very relaxing practice to finish on. Is that okay? So if you can find again your favorite posture. Once again, just taking a nice, deep, relaxing breath. And as you release, settling into your chair once more. And once again, reflecting for a moment about this quality of motivation. May we cultivate a profoundly stilled and settled state of mind, of serenity, so that we may discover the true nature of reality and the true nature of our mind, to discover the ground of our being, primordial consciousness, and bring the light of that consciousness into the world. So then you can become aware of the tactile sensations inside the body as you breathe. Really letting that awareness of the sensations be receptive. After all, the word for mindfulness in Pali and Sanskrit is feminine, sati. To receive the sensations. You don't have to focus outside very hard. Receive them. With every exhale, taking that opportunity to relax and release any tension you may hold. So leaving your breath totally uninhibited. Let your body breathe itself. Try not to interfere with the cycle of the breath in any way. As you let your awareness rest in this field of tactile sensations, as you breathe, see if you can imagine that your skin becomes sort of permeable. The solid boundaries of your body become more and more spacious. And with that, your awareness becomes more and more spacious. In fact, you can let go of having an object at all. You can leave your body exactly as it is. Leave your mind exactly as it is. Leave your breath exactly as it is. And leave your attention undirected. There's nothing for you to do because awareness is already here. You can trust in this ever-present ground of awareness. And your attention gets drawn out towards some object. You can simply relax that focus of the attention and leave it undirected again. there's dullness present, sleepiness. Notice that which is aware of that dullness. And remain in that awareness. Nothing for you to do. Simply dwell in this ever-present field of awareness. So then as we bring this meditation to a close, let's dedicate whatever positive force, whatever positive qualities we've developed through this practice, that it might enable us to awaken to our full Buddha potential in order to be of lasting value to every living being without exception, to help them also awaken to their full Buddha potential. Okay. So as I'm looking at the time here, we've been going for about 90 minutes or so. This might also be a beautiful place to conclude things, but I'm also open to continuing. So perhaps we can do a small show of hands. Those who would like to do one more little short practice can raise their hand. See quite a few. Okay. Looks good. So then, again, if anybody has a 1 or 2 sentence little remark they would like to make of the practice we just did, feel free. And if not, then we can slowly go towards the finale. Insight practice. Vipassana. Somebody has a comment. Default mode network is strong in me. Please continue, they said. Good. Sometimes it feels like a spoiling to talk after this practice. I don't know, it just feels nothing left to say, but you know, in my own practice also this morning, as I was doing this, it is always a wonderful kind of transition after just resting in this awareness, just totally no grasping, no activity, this just totally spacious, empty. And then to bring in that subtle little investigation, this little bit of inquiry, this almost this curiosity. What's going on here, you know? And I think for most of you, probably the 4 applications of mindfulness are familiar territory. I mean, if you know Alan's work, but again, if somebody's here who isn't familiar, very briefly, I mentioned bringing the mindfulness we just developed, that stable attention, and applying that to investigating the body and feelings and the mind, and then all phenomena. One way I personally like to practice this, and this is not somehow canonical or anything, but I think it can be a very useful way to approach the practice, that of course the point of insight meditation is to, in a sense, undermine the tendency of the mind to project something that actually isn't there, and specifically a sense of self, a kind of a fixed kind of unchanging kind of self, which we project onto our experience. But if we investigate it more closely, it becomes more and more difficult to find the thing that feels so real, right? And of course, in the Buddhist teachings, the way this is explained is that this concept of me latches onto the body or the mind and imagines that it is identical with that. I am my body. I am my mind. Or I am my mind, but I have a body, and so on, all the variations of that. And so if we're trying to investigate who are we really, what is this sense of me that I have? If we're trying to really investigate it, we go through, you can start by going through the body, you know. In this body, can I find anything that is a solid, unchanging, separate me that is a person? Can I find anything in this body that is like that? And of course, what many people report when they do this, all I find really is tactile sensations, warmth, tingling, pressure, and so forth. If we're doing more analytical, I find body parts, sensations in the head, and so forth. But if I take one of those, is that sensation me? I mean, it's just a sensation, right? And so you can do this. You can scan through the whole body looking for this solid, unchanging, separate kind of me that we imagine we have, and that feels so real, especially when somebody triggers us, right? A friend or a family member accuses you of something you didn't do, and you feel, what are you talking about? Me? You feel this, it feels so big and real. But then when you've calmed down, you know, probably not in that moment, but a bit later, if you were to look for it, it can be so elusive. What was that thing that felt so real? And of course, also you can do it in the mind, looking in the mind. What of these thoughts, are any of these thoughts me? If they were, the moment they end, I would stop to exist. Clearly, that can't be me, right? They go too fast. But something's watching that. Okay, that feels more like me. Is that awareness, just awareness, is that awareness a fixed, solid, unchanging, identifiable me? Well, as we just did, we rested in awareness. I mean, that's pretty spacious. It seems pretty vast. It doesn't feel so much like a thing me, you know? And so I always find that a very helpful way of doing this practice, to kind of almost like take a tour. You go through the body first and then through the mind, and you're looking for this thing. And I mean, of course, if you find it, let me know. But as we know, most people who try fail to find it. And so let's try that. Maybe as the final little practice, we can do a little investigating. Okay, so finally, again, take your posture. And as before, just starting by taking a nice, luxurious, deep breath. And release. Just taking a moment to tune into our motivation. May we develop, sharpen the blade of discriminating awareness, of prajna, to investigate the nature of reality, to see through the illusions that cause us unnecessary suffering, so that we may be able to liberate as many beings as possible from the illusions that cause them unnecessary suffering. And so just for a few minutes, again, noticing, receiving the tactile sensations of breathing in the body, resting our attention in those sensations. And again, with each exhale, releasing tension in the body and mind. Really letting your breath find its own natural rhythm without controlling it at all. And as you let your attention settle in the space of the body, just noticing, registering all these little sensations. See if you can bring a subtle kind of curiosity Are any of these me? Is anything I see in this space, the space of the body, is it me? An unchanging self? Rather than trying to answer that question by thinking about it, to look very closely at your experience, like a scientist looking through a microscope. I encourage you to look especially in that area of the body that you feel that's where I am seated, that you feel most identified with, whether that's the head or the heart or whatever. Look especially there. You feel any sense of fear or uneasiness as you do this investigation, go gently. If you find something that feels like me, can you identify what about this tells me that it's me? Does it have any characteristics of an unchanging self? If you indeed fail to find such a self, stay with that experience of unfindability. No need to fill it in with something else. Just stay there. And then slowly we can move towards the domain of the mind. A space of awareness and the thoughts and emotions, desires, images arising in that space. And with a sense of witnessing awareness, not interfering with anything, totally relaxed. What do you observe? Looking at each thought that arises, is this me? Or more importantly, that awareness, that which is aware of these thoughts, is this me? Is this an unchanging self? Or is this just awareness? Look closely. Is there anything about this awareness that tells you that it's a self, a person, rather than just awareness? And then as we slowly bring our session to a close, let's dedicate whatever positive qualities we've developed together today through these 4 practices. May they enable us to fully awaken to our potential, our Buddha potential, in order to be of lasting value to every living being without exception, to help them also awaken to their full Buddha potential. May the supreme bodhicitta that has not yet grown begin to grow, and that which has begun to grow, may it increase unceasingly for the welfare of sentient beings. Okay. So there we go. 2 hours flew by. An hour of meditation together. So I want to thank you all for being here and indulging me and participating. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I'm open to any questions or anything, but of course, I don't know if there's a 2 hour limit, but I'm available. So thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely stay on a little bit longer, Timo, if you would like to field any more questions or comments from people. That's totally fine. And I'll just mention for everybody who has to go. Now, of course, we appreciate your being here so much. And just a heads up for next month, we'll have Clara Seeger coming back to lead another session. She did a really interesting session a few months ago about microphenomenology and meditation practice. So this next topic is TBD, but again, our main speaker is going to be Clara Seeger, and we hope you'll join us for that as well. So that's my one plug. But yeah, if Timo, if you're open, we can stay for longer and keep the conversation going. So it's really your
All
call
right.
when you feel ready to end.
Okay. Yeah. Gil, did you have a question? Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Shelley, please.
Thank you, Timo. Two questions. One is I missed the four practices, the names of the four practices. I only have shamatha, tanglen, and vipassana. What was the fourth one?
Right. So you said shamatha, vipassana, and the other one you had was
Tanglen? Or was
Tonglen. Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, the first practice we did was developing the determination to be free, but it was a meditation on the first noble truth. So
Oh, that's right. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then my last question is it's not a question. You have a beautiful way of stating the motivation, before each practice. I love your skill set or your intentions there. Just very heartfelt and open and beautiful. I'm wondering if you might send us one of those. I could use an example of a beautiful motivation before practice. It's like a blessing.
Oh yeah.
Is what it seems like. It's
Oh, that's
so
lovely.
I need something to go by, as a format, so to speak. I'd really appreciate
Right.
it. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Thank you. Yeah, it's a bit improvised, I suppose, but I sort of try to, link it to the particular quality we're developing in the practice we're doing, and sort of like, yeah, may that quality help us awaken to our full potential so that we can be of greatest value to others, something like that. But I would be happy to write some of those down and maybe send them over with the I suppose there will be a sort of reminder email or something like that, or for the
Yeah.
recording.
So what we'll do, so in all the after Ghatika monthly, every month we send out the recordings of both the talk and the guided meditation, or in this case, guided meditations. So all this audio will be available for free on our site. So you'll have that for reference. And then Timo, if you wanted to, we could, create a PDF or something of different just short introductory verses or anything like that that you wanted to add. So, yeah, we
Sure.
can definitely provide those. Yeah.
I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, yeah. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Ronald, please.
I know this shouldn't bother me, but I spend a lot of time trying to decide how much time I should devote to each practice. I feel my biggest problem right now is developing bodhicitta, so Tonglen is important, but so is Shamatha, which doesn't leave much time for Vipassana. Is that just something how do you decide how you spend
Yeah.
limited time in the various practices?
Yeah. I can really relate to that question. I have struggled with it for a long time myself. Something I've been trying recently, and this might be interesting to try, is um, I sort of had it in my head for a while that when you do a session, it has to be 24 minutes. And then it's very hard to fill your day like that. If you want to touch all bases, if you will. But partly because of teaching a 12-week course for more uh, beginners, I realized 15 minutes is actually great. You can do a lot in 15 minutes. And so what I've been trying is sort of doing 15-minute meditations or even shorter of I try to do at least one of the like all of these four uh, every day if I can. But really just doing like 15 minutes of each. And that can be, uh, two of them together back to back, 30 minutes in the morning, and two of them back to back in the evening, 30 minutes. So, but that can be something worth trying to actually just shorten the sessions, and that way you can usually find more time to do it. It has an interesting effect I've noticed that if you keep each practice alive a little bit each day, it does wonders for picking it back up if you want to deepen it again. Like if I've spent a few weeks or months not doing any, Tonglen practice and I get back into it, it's like rusty. It doesn't feel like it takes a while to get back into it. And this may help to, I don't know, something worth trying maybe. Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, Maybe also just as a last little note, worth mentioning that, as I mentioned, I recently finished a 12-week meditation course where we went through all these four practices in more detail. And I'll probably start teaching that again sometime soon in the next few weeks. So if any of you are interested at all, on my website, there's a newsletter. And if you subscribe to that, you'll be notified whenever that would start again, just to let you know that in case you're interested. So, but yeah, apart from that, if anybody else has a question or comment, and otherwise we can round it off. All right. Everybody's looking content. So it's a good place to end. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks everybody so much for coming again. And if you're still here and if you feel so moved, of course, the CCR is a nonprofit and we do rely on donations to keep sessions like this going, as well as all of our other programming. So again, if you benefited from this session and you have the means, we would so appreciate any gift that you're able to make to support our work. So I'll put a link in the chat before ending the ending our session today. And again, thanks so much everybody for coming, and we hope to see you next month.
All right. Bye-bye.